Do you ever just know when someone's lying? Not because you caught them. Not because you have proof, but because something inside you goes quiet and certain. It's not suspicion. It's not anxiety. It's a shift. A click. A subtle internal verdict that arrives fully formed. And the moment it lands, the air changes. The conversation continues, but something invisible tightens. There's a strange pause between sentences. A stiffness in their smile. A flicker in their eyes. You haven't accused. You haven't reacted. You haven't even moved. But somehow they feel exposed. And you can feel that they feel it. That silent exchange, I see it, and you know I see it, creates a tension most people can't tolerate. Here's what you need to understand. This is not paranoia. It's not hypervigilance. It's not social dysfunction. It's perception. Rare perception. The kind that doesn't operate on words, but on alignment. You're not detecting a single lie. You're detecting misalignment between language and energy, expression and intention, confidence and fear. Most people are comfortable living at surface level. Words are enough for them. If it sounds right, it is right. But your mind doesn't stop at sound. It scans for coherence. And when coherence is missing, you feel it instantly. That ability can feel isolating. Because while others move smoothly through conversations, you're navigating a constant undercurrent of subtle contradictions. You've probably felt different your whole life. Not because you lacked social skills, but because you were listening to something others didn't even register. In a group setting, while everyone laughs at the joke, you notice who forced the laugh. When someone shares good news, you sense who feels threatened. When a friend says they're fine, you feel the heaviness they're hiding. It's like living with heightened emotional radar that never powers down. And there's no switch to turn it off. That's exhausting. It creates distance. Not because you want distance, but because people instinctively sense that you see more than they intended to show. They feel read. And most people are deeply uncomfortable being read. So they label you instead. Too intense. Too serious. Too analytical. Overthinking. You hear just relax more than most. But relaxing, for you, would mean pretending not to notice the obvious. And that feels like self-betrayal. You would have to gaslight your own perception just to make others comfortable. And something inside you refuses to do that. Here's the deeper truth. Human interaction is built on subtle performances. We all adjust, filter, present. Social life requires a degree of masking. But some people depend on the mask entirely. Their identity is constructed around how they appear rather than who they are. When you look at them, you're not just seeing the mask. You're sensing the gap between the mask and the person wearing it. And that gap is what creates the discomfort. It's not that you're attacking them. It's that your awareness removes the illusion of invisibility. And for someone hiding insecurity, resentment, jealousy, or deceit, being seen feels dangerous, so they react. Sometimes subtly, a change in tone, a shift in body language, emotional withdrawal. Sometimes aggressively, dismissing you, mocking you, accusing you of reading too much into things. But underneath every reaction is the same message. Stop seeing me. The irony is that you never asked for this ability. It developed quietly over time. Maybe from childhood. Maybe from needing to read a room to stay safe. Maybe from simply being observant while others were distracted. However it formed, it's real. And the mistake would be believing it makes you socially defective. What if the opposite is true? What if you're not awkward, you're calibrated? What if your discomfort in shallow exchanges isn't arrogance, but a nervous system that refuses to ignore contradiction? What if your loneliness isn't because you're strange, but because depth is rare? A deeply perceptive mind will always feel slightly out of place in environments built on surface harmony. But perception is not a curse. It's discernment. And discernment, when understood and controlled, becomes power. The goal is not to call out every inconsistency. The goal is to trust what you sense without being consumed by it. Because once you understand your perception, once you stop apologizing for it, something shifts. The same ability that once made you feel isolated becomes your compass. It guides you toward authentic people. It protects you from manipulation. It prevents you from investing in illusions. Yes, it may intimidate those who rely on performance. But it will attract those who are ready to be real. And that is not a weakness. That is strength. The first and most obvious sign is this. You are a master at noticing incongruence. You don't just process words. You register alignment. Most people listen to what is being said and decide whether they agree or disagree. You listen to how it is being said, when it is being said, what the body is doing while it's being said, and what emotional current runs underneath it. You see the whole picture at once. While others are satisfied interacting at surface level, you instinctively scan for cracks in the performance. And make no mistake, social life is performance. The psychologist Carl Jung called this the persona, the social mask each of us develops to function, to belong, to be accepted. The persona is the polished resume, the confident handshake, the agreeable smile, the carefully measured tone. It's not evil. It's necessary. But it is still a mask. Most conversations happen at this comfortable mask-to-mask level. Two personas interacting, maintaining harmony, avoiding friction. But you don't stop at the mask. You feel the human being underneath it. You notice when your friend says yes with enthusiasm, but their shoulders tighten and their breathing shortens. You register the half-second delay before they answer. You sense the resentment buried beneath politeness. You hear the colleague praise a project while their voice loses warmth and their eyes harden. The words say support. The tone says threat. And that split is loud to you. You are not hunting for lies. You are not trying to expose anyone. The detection happens automatically. It's intuitive pattern recognition built over years of observation. Your nervous system flags mismatch the way a smoke detector senses heat before flames appear. Something is off. You may not immediately articulate it, but you feel it with clarity. And here's the part people don't talk about. Incongruence triggers discomfort because humans are wired to seek coherence. When behavior and language don't align, the brain experiences subtle tension. Most people override that tension in the name of social ease. You don't. You sit with it. You track it. You can't unsee it. And that is precisely what unsettles inauthentic individuals. Because when someone depends heavily on their persona, when their identity is fused with the mask, being accurately perceived feels like exposure. Jung understood this deeply. To be seen beyond the persona is both intimate and terrifying. For someone integrated, someone who has accepted their flaws and contradictions, your perception feels validating. They relax around you. They feel understood without over-explaining themselves. But for someone hiding insecurity, envy, manipulation, or self-deception, your quiet awareness feels like an interrogation light. You don't accuse. You don't confront. Yet they feel scanned. They sense you are not buying the performance entirely. That subtle awareness strips away their sense of control. And when control slips, anxiety rises. This is often when you see the shift. Their tone sharpens. Their posture stiffens. They may joke dismissively, change the topic, or subtly undermine you. It's not random. It's defense. Because if you can see through one crack, you might see through all of them. Now here's the second sign, and it is even more powerful. You operate from psychological sovereignty. Your reality is internally anchored. That means when you perceive something, you don't immediately abandon your perception just because someone disagrees. You don't require consensus to validate your intuition. You are open to being wrong, but you are not easily overridden. This quality makes you extremely difficult to manipulate. Manipulation depends on destabilizing someone's internal compass. Gaslighting is the clearest example. It is the systematic attempt to make you question your memory, your judgment, your sanity. That never happened. You're imagining things. You're too sensitive. These statements are not random. They are tools designed to erode self-trust. Gaslighting feeds on insecurity. It works best on people who already doubt their own perceptions. But when someone tries this strategy on you, something different happens. Instead of shrinking, you become more alert. The attempt itself confirms your suspicion. The more they insist nothing is wrong, the more certain you become that something is. Because your internal reference point is stable. You don't outsource reality. This does not mean you are arrogant. It means you are calibrated. You can consider alternative explanations without discarding your original signal. And that stability is threatening to manipulative personalities. Individuals who rely on control need others to bend psychologically. They need narrative dominance. They need you uncertain. When they realize you are not bending, frustration sets in. Their usual tactics fail. The charm doesn't disarm you. The intimidation doesn't silence you. The confusion tactics don't destabilize you. At that point, they have limited options. They either distance themselves, sensing you are not a profitable target, or they escalate through hostility, projection, or character attacks. You may have experienced this pattern. A subtle power struggle emerges where you didn't even know a game was being played. That's because for you, there is no game. You are simply observing and standing firm in what you sense. Your psychological sovereignty acts like a shield. It doesn't prevent all harm. No one is immune to manipulation. But it significantly reduces your susceptibility to narrative control. And when someone cannot rewrite your perception, they lose leverage. That loss of leverage often transforms into resentment. They may label you difficult, stubborn, overly analytical. What they are really expressing is discomfort at not being able to steer your reality. Your inner stability neutralizes subtle coercion. You cannot be easily guilted into accepting distortions. You cannot be easily convinced that obvious inconsistencies are illusions. And in environments where many people unconsciously negotiate reality for social comfort, your refusal to do so stands out sharply. You are not loud about it. You don't need to be. Your calm certainty does the work. And that quiet certainty is precisely what makes you intimidating to those who survive through distortion. They cannot control you. They cannot easily confuse you. And they cannot fully hide from you. That combination creates unease. But it also defines strength. Let's ground this in reality. The phrase human lie detector sounds dramatic. It sounds cinematic. It suggests a person who can watch someone blink twice, glance left, scratch their nose, and immediately declare deception. That image is powerful, but it is mostly fiction. Decades of psychological research show that the average person's ability to detect lies hovers just slightly above chance. In other words, most people are barely better than flipping a coin. Even professionals trained to interrogate and interview struggle to achieve the near-perfect accuracy we see in movies. The truth is far less glamorous. There are no universal tells. No single gesture that equals dishonesty. No magic micro-expression that exposes every secret. Human behavior is too complex, too contextual, too culturally shaped for simple formulas. So if you resonate with the idea that you can sense when something is off, we need to be precise about what that actually means. It does not mean you possess supernatural accuracy. It does not mean you are incapable of being wrong. It means something more nuanced and, in many ways, more powerful. What you have is refined pattern recognition. Over years of observation, your brain has been collecting data. Tone shifts. Timing irregularities. Emotional mismatches. Inconsistencies between story and behavior. You have watched how people act when they are aligned and how they act when they are hiding something. You may not consciously catalog these moments, but your nervous system does. It stores them. It builds an internal database of integrity patterns. When someone speaks, your subconscious compares the present signal with thousands of past signals. And when something does not match the pattern of authenticity, you feel it instantly. The conclusion rises before the explanation. That is why it feels like intuition. But intuition is not magic. It is compressed experience. It is cognition happening at a speed that outpaces conscious thought. Your brain finishes the equation before your awareness catches up. And what you are often detecting is not a single lie. You are detecting dissonance. A gap between language and emotion. A fracture between stated values and observable behavior. a subtle split between who someone claims to be and how they actually move through the world. Integrity is coherence across time. When someone lacks that coherence, even in small ways, your system flags it. It may not mean they are malicious. It may not mean they are pathological. Humans contradict themselves constantly. But you are sensitive to those contradictions. You register them in real time. This is why it can feel overwhelming. Because you are not reacting to isolated statements. You are sensing character-level misalignment. And here is the critical part. High perceptiveness does not equal infallibility. The danger of believing you are always right is that it can turn discernment into paranoia. Psychological strength includes the capacity to question your own conclusions. You can trust your signal without worshipping it. You can say, something feels off, while remaining open to new information. That balance is maturity. That balance keeps perception sharp instead of rigid. Now let's move into another sign that often accompanies this perceptiveness. You crave depth, and you are drained by small talk. Casual chit-chat about weather patterns, weekend errands, office gossip, surface updates. For many people, this is harmless social glue. For you, it can feel strangely exhausting. It is not that you despise human interaction. It is that you struggle to invest energy in exchanges that never move beyond performance. Small talk is structured to maintain comfort. It protects the persona. It keeps conversation in safe territory. Earlier we discussed the concept of the persona through the work of Jung. The persona allows social functioning. It filters out raw emotion. It smooths edges. But when your mind is wired to skim beneath that surface, prolonged engagement at the mask level feels hollow. You sit there hearing words that carry no emotional risk, no vulnerability, no truth. It feels like walking around the edge of a pool when you would rather dive in. You crave substance. You are willing to explore uncomfortable territory. You are open to discussing fear, ambition, regret, identity, failure. You want conversations that reveal something real. That does not mean you demand trauma disclosure from strangers. It means you value authenticity over performance. You would rather have one meaningful exchange than 10 polite ones. And that preference can unsettle people. Because depth requires exposure. When you ask a thoughtful question, something beyond logistics, you create a fork in the road. The other person must decide whether to stay behind the mask or step slightly beyond it. For someone comfortable in their own skin, your curiosity feels refreshing. They lean in. They appreciate being met beyond the surface. But for someone who relies on avoidance, who uses small talk as armor, your depth feels invasive. They may laugh it off. They may redirect the topic. They may label you intense. What they are really expressing is discomfort with being seen more clearly than they intended. To enter depth is to risk revealing inconsistency. It is to risk confronting one's own contradictions. Many people unconsciously structure their social life around avoiding that confrontation. Light conversation allows them to maintain narrative control. It prevents exposure. When you consistently orient toward depth, you disrupt that structure. You signal that you are not satisfied with appearances. That quiet refusal to stay shallow can be perceived as pressure, even when you are calm. There is also a biological component. Meaningful conversation activates different emotional circuits than trivial talk. It engages vulnerability. Vulnerability activates fear responses in those who have unresolved internal conflict. So when you steer toward substance, you may unknowingly activate someone's anxiety. They experience that activation as threat. Not because you are attacking them, but because you are moving closer to authenticity. And authenticity can destabilize carefully maintained illusions. This is why small talk feels draining to you. It requires you to suppress your natural inclination toward coherence and depth. It asks you to pretend that surface alignment is enough. After a while, that pretending exhausts your system. You are wired to track truth. Staying shallow feels like holding your breath. You can do it temporarily, but you cannot live there. The key is not to reject all light conversation or judge those who prefer it. The key is to understand your own orientation. You are built to detect patterns, to seek alignment, to move beyond performance. When you accept that about yourself, you stop feeling defective for wanting more. You recognize that your discomfort is not arrogance. It is calibration. And when you combine calibrated perception with humility and emotional discipline, you create something rare. A person who sees clearly, seeks depth, and remains grounded enough to question their own conclusions. That combination does not make you a mythological lie detector. It makes you psychologically aware. And awareness, when managed wisely, is far more powerful than any cinematic superpower. This is where everything connects. This is the psychological core of why your presence can feel so unsettling to certain people. The Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung proposed that every human being carries a shadow. The shadow is not some mystical force. It is the unconscious container for everything we refuse to acknowledge about ourselves. It holds the traits we were told were unacceptable. The jealousy we deny. The insecurity we mask with arrogance. The resentment we disguise as indifference. The ambition we pretend we don't have. The fear we bury under control. The shadow forms early. As children, we quickly learn which parts of us are rewarded and which parts are rejected. The rewarded traits become our public identity. The rejected traits are pushed into the dark. But repression does not erase anything. It only hides it from conscious awareness. The shadow remains active beneath the surface, influencing behavior, reactions, relationships. Most people spend their lives unconsciously protecting themselves from seeing this hidden side. They build narratives to justify their behavior. They blame circumstances. They blame other people. They rationalize contradictions. Because facing the shadow requires humility. It requires admitting, I am not only the good parts one display. I am also capable of envy, selfishness, cruelty, insecurity. That confrontation is destabilizing. So instead of integrating the shadow, many project it outward. Projection is one of the most powerful and misunderstood psychological defenses. It happens when someone attributes to others what they cannot tolerate in themselves. The person who lies frequently becomes obsessed with accusing others of dishonesty. The insecure individual labels others as arrogant. The resentful person calls everyone else negative. In projection, the inner conflict is displaced onto an external target. And this is where you come in. When you possess strong perception and authenticity, you disrupt the illusion. You do not actively attack anyone's shadow. You do not need to. Your mere presence acts like a mirror. Because you are attentive. Because you are internally anchored. Because you are not easily fooled by surface performance. People sense that you might see beyond the mask. And that possibility alone activates anxiety. When someone reacts to you with sudden irritation, unexplained hostility, gossip behind your back, or subtle exclusion, the reaction often appears disproportionate. You might replay the interaction in your mind wondering what you did wrong. The truth is, in many cases, you did nothing. They are not reacting to your behavior. They are reacting to the discomfort of being reflected. Your calm observation forces proximity to parts of themselves they have worked hard to avoid. And instead of turning inward, they turn outward. It is much easier to criticize the mirror than to examine the reflection. If they can label you as judgmental, intense, arrogant, or difficult, they restore psychological balance. Now the discomfort is your fault, not theirs. The shadow remains safely unexamined. Jung emphasized that what irritates us about others often reveals something about ourselves. When someone feels inexplicably threatened by your quiet awareness, it may be because you trigger recognition. They glimpse a trait they dislike in themselves. They sense inconsistency. They feel their mask slipping. And that experience is deeply uncomfortable. For an integrated person, being seen is relieving. It feels like authenticity is finally allowed. But for someone fragmented, being seen feels like exposure. Exposure feels like danger. And danger triggers defense. Understanding this changes everything. It prevents you from internalizing every negative reaction. It does not mean you are perfect. It does not mean you are beyond self-examination. It means you can evaluate criticism without automatically absorbing it. You can ask, is this feedback accurate, or is it projection? That discernment protects your mental clarity. It also keeps you from becoming cynical. Because here is the important nuance. The goal is not to walk around believing everyone who dislikes you is projecting their shadow. That would be ego disguised as insight. The goal is balance. The goal is awareness of the dynamic without losing humility. When you recognize that some hostility is projection, you stop shrinking to avoid it. You stop dimming yourself to make others comfortable. You stop trying to manage other people's unconscious conflicts. And this leads to a powerful reframe. Your perceptiveness is not a social curse. It is evidence of psychological resilience. It means you value alignment over illusion. It means you are less susceptible to manipulation through performance. It means you seek authenticity even when it is inconvenient. Yes, this can feel isolating. Depth narrows the field. Not everyone wants to be seen clearly. Not everyone wants to integrate their shadow. But the same perception that unsettles the unintegrated will attract the self-aware. It will draw in people who are ready to confront themselves honestly. People who are strong enough to appreciate a mirror rather than attack it. If this resonates with you, if you have experienced being subtly excluded, misunderstood, or labeled simply because you refuse to ignore inconsistency, share that experience. What reactions do you encounter most often? Defensive humor? Sudden distance? Character attacks? Someone else listening may finally realize they are not alone. And if you want to continue exploring the mechanics of projection, perception, and psychological power, stay connected. Because understanding these dynamics does more than validate you. It equips you. In the end, the answer is not to suppress your awareness. It is not to pretend you do not see what you clearly see. The answer is integration. Recognize your strengths without inflating them. Recognize your blind spots without condemning yourself. Hold your perception with discipline. When you do that, your presence stops being something you apologize for. It becomes a compass. It guides you away from distortion and toward genuine connection. The discomfort you sometimes trigger is not proof of your defect. It is often evidence of someone else's unresolved conflict. Embrace your perception. Not as a weapon. Not as superiority. But as clarity. Because clarity, used wisely, leads you toward truth. And truth, even when uncomfortable, is the foundation of real power.